All right, so we're going to go into lesson 2 today. So a couple days ago, we talked about integers and graphing and all that type of stuff. Now we're going to talk about absolute value. Okay, so absolute value kind of deals with those opposites that we talked about the other day, but a little different. We'll go into that here shortly. Let me zoom in. Okay, here we go. So in the vocabulary startup, it says the distance between a number and 0 on the number line is called absolute value. So basically, 4 is how many units away from 0. Like how far away is it? Like on a number line, how many times would you have to count to 4? 4 times. So the absolute value of 4 would be 4. Okay, so it's just literally how far away from 0 it is. That's how this works. So number 1 here says each mark on the number line indicates 1 yard. Draw a tree 3 yards west of the house. So let's draw a tree real quick. So we start at the house. We go 1, 2, 3. This is going to be one ugly tree, let me tell you. Good enough. Looks kind of like a hand. Then they want you to draw a mailbox 3 yards east of the house. So 1, 2, 3. Good enough. All right. Now, the distance between the house and the tree is how many? So from the tree to the house. How many is that? Just say it, guys. 3. 3 yards. Oh, hold on. I messed that up. My bad. I didn't read it right. All right. So what I mean, the distance between the house and the tree is blank, the distance between the house and the mailbox. So this is 3 units away. That was 3 units away. So what can we say they are? The same. So they're equal to. So the distance between the house and the tree is equal to the distance between the house and the mailbox. It's the same amount. They both went 3 yards west and 3 yards east. So the tree and the mailbox are in blank directions from the house. So what can we say? So we have the tree is over here, the house or the mailbox is over there. There's the house. What could you say about the directions? Opposite directions. So they're in opposite directions from the house. So how does the number line above help you understand absolute value? So what can we say about this number line? What can we say about this house? Where is it at if we're using a number line, Hunter?
It'd be at the 0.
At 0. So we could say the house is at 0. So then that's our work where we're ultimately trying to figure out the direction. So let's just say the house is at 0. And we then just count the distance. So number lines are very, very helpful with this. All right. So number 5, Jesse leaves home and walks 4 blocks west to the grocery store to buy milk and then returns home. He then walks another 4 blocks east to the post office. Compare the distance and the direction of Jesse's house and the post office from the grocery store. So basically, if he walks 4 blocks west to the grocery store and then goes home, and then he walks another 4 blocks east to the post office, what can we say about the direction? Like the distance, basically. How far away are they? Okay, so how far away are they from the house? They're both 4. So we can literally put they are both 4 blocks away. So they're both 4 blocks away in opposite directions. You can add that in there too, to be a little bit more specific. Okay, once you have that, go ahead and go on to the next page. All right, so now we're going to talk about finding opposites. So positive numbers such as 2 are graphed to the right or above 0 on a number line. We talked about that on Tuesday. Now negative numbers such as -2 are graphed to the left. So if you look at this number line down here, we have 0 right here in the middle. Everything to the left of 0 is always negative. Everything to the right is always positive. It will never change because the positive numbers are greater than 0. Whereas the negative numbers are less than 0. So it'll always be that. It will never change. Now, opposites are the numbers that are the same distance from 0 in different directions. And remember, 0 is not, it's not negative, it's not positive. It's just 0. Okay, that's just it. It's its own opposite. So if I say what's the opposite of 0, it's literally 0. Okay, now what would be the opposite of +2? Hunter? -2. Okay, what's the opposite of -65? +65. That's how opposites work. Okay, so it's just literally how far away from 0 it is. So what would be the opposite of -5? 5. Okay, you can draw out a number line if you need to. That's totally up to you. They also show how you just use symbols, but guys, you should know that the opposite of -5 is +5. Okay. Okay, so what would be the opposite of the opposite of 4? Now think about that. Find the opposite of the opposite of 4. So break this down. Miami, 4. Okay, so the first one would be, it says find the opposite. So what's the opposite of 4? And then find the opposite of that. That's how those work. Okay, so you just got to read it very slowly. So let's jump over a few pages and go over to 359.
I thought it was like some blind puzzle question. I was like,
No, they just like to throw that in there and trick you guys up a little bit. So you just got to slow down and read it. So number 1, what is the opposite of 6? Just say it. -6. Okay, what's the opposite of -3? 3. And what's the opposite of 0? 0. That's it. That's all they're going to ask you. Now, once again, they might throw that find the opposite of the opposite. So you got to slow down and take your time with that. So go ahead and go back to page 356, and I want you to do A and B. Just A and B down there. So read them through and then find those numbers. Here in a little bit, not right now. All right, letter A. What is the opposite of 3? Destiny? -3. Okay, letter B. What is the opposite of -2? Hunter? -2. Okay, any questions on opposites? They're pretty easy, guys. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't overthink it. It's literally just the opposite of the number. Okay? All right, now we're going to get into absolute value. So like I was saying earlier, absolute value of the number is basically the distance away from 0 it is. Okay, yeah. Should be unlocked. Let's pull it. Okay, there you go. All right, so like I was saying, when they ask for the absolute value, they're going to use this symbol right here. They're like straight up lines, and they'll put the number inside. What that means is that's actually read as what is the absolute value of 3. Okay, so then the absolute value of 3, how far away from 0 is 3? 3. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. Okay, you're not finding opposites. That's one thing I need you guys to remember. When they're talking about absolute value, it's not -3. We're talking about how far away from 0 it is. So it's going to be always positive, no matter what. So then what would be the absolute value of -4? 4. It's 4 units away from 0. So that's what you would look at. Okay, just like that. If you have to, you can draw a number line. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but you don't have to if you don't want to. All right, so this one, number 3. What is the absolute value of -7? 7. Okay, now the next part of this, they're going to throw this at you. This is read as what is the absolute value of 5 plus the absolute value of negative 6. So what you have to do first, do the absolute value first, then the addition. Okay, so what's the absolute value of 5? 5. What's the absolute value of negative 6? 6. Now you do the addition. What's 5 plus 6? 11. Okay, so when they're inside the brackets like this, always do the absolute value first. Okay, then you do the addition. All right, so let's do another one like that. So we have the absolute value of negative 7 minus the absolute value of 3. So what is the absolute value of negative 7? 7. What's the absolute value of 3? 3. So what's 7 minus 3? 4. Okay, so that's how that works. All right, so let's go back over and do some more on page 359. Okay, number 7 here. So the absolute value of negative 14. So what would be the absolute value of negative 14? 14. Okay. So when it's just like that, all you're doing is finding the absolute value. Now here we have the absolute value of 31 minus the absolute value of negative 1. So when you have something like this, always do the absolute value first. So what is the absolute value of 31? 31. Minus, what's the absolute value of negative 1? 1. So what's 31 minus 1? 30. That's absolute value, guys. It's literally just how far away from 0 it is. Okay, it's very, very simple, but it can be complicated too. You just have to slow down. All right. Now this one, number 9, same thing. Absolute value of negative 15 plus the absolute value of negative 6. So we got to do these first. So what is the absolute value of negative 15? 15. Now what's the absolute value of negative 6? 6. So now we do 15 plus 6. 21. Okay? That's it. All right, let's go back, and I want you guys to do a couple on page 357, that C and D down there. Or CDE. Okay, so you're just finding the absolute value here. So go work them out. I'll give you a couple minutes. All right, let's look at this. So letter C, we have the absolute value of 14. So what's the absolute value of 14? 14. Okay, letter D. Now we have the absolute value of negative 9 plus the absolute value of 3. So what we got to first do the absolute value. So what's the absolute value of negative 9? 9. What's the absolute value of 3? 3. So then we add those together. 12. All right, and letter E. So we have the absolute value of negative 8 minus the absolute value of negative 2. So what's the absolute value of negative 8? 8. What's the absolute value of negative 2? 2. So 8 minus 2, 6. Any questions? Pretty easy stuff, guys. All right, so on the next page, one more thing you're going to see is just a story problem. Doesn't change anything. You're just still working with absolute value. So a seagull is flying 25 feet above sea level. Nevaeh is diving 15 feet below sea level. So they want to find the distance between Nevaeh and the seagull. So basically what you're going to have to do is set it up like this with absolute value. So you would do the absolute value of 25 plus the absolute value of that. How would we represent 15 feet below sea level? Negative 15. And then you just solve this out. So what's the absolute value of 25? 25. What's the absolute value of negative 15? 15. And then you add them together, so 40 feet. Okay? So that's the only difference. The only difference you're going to see on this is that story problem. Okay? Any questions on that one? All right. I want you guys to try to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 down there as well. Okay, so all of those, 1 through 6 down at the bottom. I'll give you a few minutes. Here we go. So, number 1, what is the opposite of 0? 0. Okay, number 2, what is the opposite of 6? 6. All right, any questions on opposites? All right. Now, we're going to be doing absolute value. So, number 3, what is the absolute value of negative 5? 5. Okay, over here. Now, we have to do the absolute value first. So, what's the absolute value of 20? 20. Minus, now what's the absolute value of negative 3? 3. So, what's 20 minus 3? 17. And now this one. So, absolute value of negative 16? 16 plus absolute value of negative 12? 12. And 16 plus 12? 28. Okay, any questions on those? All right. And the last one here. So a game show contestant lost 15 points. He answered another question incorrectly and lost another 15 points. How many total points has he lost? 30. 30 points. Now, what you could have done is set it up as 15, absolute value of 15 plus the absolute value of 15. Well, negative 15, I mean, since he lost points. So that would be 30 points. Okay, any questions at all? Pretty quick lesson today. All right, so there are 3 IXLs today, but they're very short. You should fly through them and probably finish them up by the end of class. So 6M3, 6M6, and 6M10. I'll move that up here. Okay, so those 3, they all have a star next to them. One of them, so the 6M3, that is about graphing like what we did yesterday. I just want to do another review of yesterday, or 2 days ago, I mean. This one is about absolute value. This one is about absolute value word problems. So read through them, take your time. If you get stuck, come up and see me or call me over. If you need to move because of the sun, you can. It's up to you. All right, go ahead and get to work. You got plenty of time.